And I'm live. Welcome to another episode of Mondays with Miko. I'm in my living room. It's Christmas time. I gotta show the tree in the back. So, as usual, please join. Oh, and I got my cat in the hat scarf on for a second. That way, this is what I'm gonna be wearing on Saturday at the shopping experience. So I figure I would keep with the festive mood. I got the little bells going. My cat in the hat scarf. We are ready for the shopping experience this Saturday. So if you guys can do me a favor, like as usual, share to as many places as you possibly can. I definitely appreciate it. Tell you, it's been a good day. We got a big shipment of toys that came in, and I couldn't be more happier. Woo! Sister was sweating for a little bit, but they came in. They came in just in the nick of time. So my agenda today is changing a little bit. Again, it's been a really good day, both on the toy drive side of the house. So if you, matter of fact, let me go ahead and put that up in case you still want to donate, because we need help. We have 792 children that we're currently fundraising for. So if you want to donate, $ Toy Drive, or go to pick42foundation.org. So couple things. One, today was the last day for folks to register to vote in Georgia, and I think they can still do it online. So if you have not had a chance yet to contact your friends and family in Georgia, please do so. Please, please, please. They need to register to vote. See, I'm already hot. The scarf. Okay, off it goes. Please, please. They need to register to vote. And we need to have those conversations, family, right? So call them. Let them know that you care. Let them know how much we appreciate the fact that they're on the front line for democracy, okay? So that's that on that. Tom Rice, I just got off call with our U.S. rep. So remember, Tom Rice he's our U.S. congressman. And he had it was an awesome conference call on the COVID vaccine. He took questions. He had doctors on the call, local doctors. He had DHEC on the call. He took questions from local citizens. And you heard every type of question imaginable, from conspiracy theories to what group am I in. It was really, really great. I encourage everybody to attend the next call. But I got a lot of good information about that call. Maybe next week we'll talk about it a little bit more, okay? So I wanted to talk about the inside of the bipartisan plan bill that was introduced on Tuesday for the stimulus. And it's really important, right? Because we know that, well, you don't know, but I've been saying it over and over again, a lot of people are set to really start to hurt even worse. The unemployment benefits will expire for some at the end of the year. For others, it's going to expire before Christmas with no more help in place. So businesses that have been shut down, like my husband and I business, those folks are hurting. And the money that they're getting on unemployment is not a lot. It's nothing, to tell you the truth. But I'm sorry. It's something. It's a little something, right? The government could do better, but they're going to lose that completely. It's going to be gone. It'll be nothing. And that will impact us all. It's not just the small businesses or that person who's been on unemployment because the restaurant's been closed down, or they had a job down at the beach and that's been shut down. It's all of us, because they may not be able to pay their rent. They may not be able to eat at your restaurant. They may not be able to go to the hardware store. It is going to impact our community in general. So this is something that's really, really important. And remember, that's part of the reason why I'm saying Georgia, Georgia, Georgia. A lot of people are not happy that this bill does not have the $1,200 stimulus in it, the stimulus check, the single payment check. Don't worry about that, y'all, because there's a new sheriff coming to town, and his name is Joe Biden. But we have to get him the support he needs. We need to get those 2 seats in Georgia. It will indeed make his life easier to do things like the stimulus check. Right now, what they need to do is they need to fix things that are broke, like the moratorium on evictions. Folks could be literally evicted come January, right? So there's certain things this vaccine. There's money that needs to be allocated so that the vaccine can be distributed to all of us so we can be protected and safe again, right? So these bills, that stimulus bill, is a stopgap. Don't say, oh, they didn't do this and they didn't do that. Oh, it's only $300 a week or whatever. Just know something has to be done. And right now, 45 is our president, and he has to sign it. And McConnell won't move on anything until he says that he's going to sign it. So there's still some weird things in it. Keep praying. Georgia, Georgia, Georgia. All right, so I'm going to talk more about that next week because I'm sure there's going to be more to say. There'll be further down the line next week. I need to save all this time for my guests. And because the second thing I wanted to talk to you guys about, and that was the House passing the, let me get it here, the bill to decriminalize marijuana. As a matter of fact, we're going to talk about marijuana as a word in a little bit, but it was really interesting. I mean, I had a conversation with attorney Atty Harrell, and let me tell you a little bit about him before I bring him on. He's actually in the green room, y'all. So he's here, and I need to save time so we can learn about this bill and marijuana and what it will mean if marijuana is decriminalized. Okay, so we're going to dive into the bill, and he has tons of knowledge. He is the principal attorney at the Harrell Group. Eddie L. Harrell advises cannabis and hemp industry visionaries dedicated to executing their business in a compliant and efficient way. The focus of his practice is to help individuals and business solve legal problems, plan corporate structuring, and execute compliant corporate operations. So I'm going to go ahead and take him off mute. And hello, Attorney Eddie. How are you?
Good evening. How are you?
I'm doing great. I thank you so much. I mean, this bill just passed the House, and I thank you so much for being so receptive to jump on Mondays with Miko today.
Absolutely. I'm glad I could fill in this gap. It's an important thing for us to talk about, both as citizens, certainly as a professional working in the space, and definitely for the communities that it's affected, principally in both good and for negative purposes, especially in the community that I most currently represent in terms of the African American community. The effects that this bill and just the history of cannabis or marijuana has had on the African American community are important things in what I do on a daily basis.
Awesome. So now you practice law in Maryland and DC, correct?
I'm licensed in Maryland. I'm licensed in the federal courts in both Maryland and DC. My practice is principally in Maryland, but I advise clients across the country and on various things. I've worked in various capacities because there's a space for all types of consulting, especially in this space.
Yeah.
Because it's really each individual jurisdiction runs into its own challenges, and basic business operations still happen, doesn't matter what the state is. So setting up compliance mechanisms for any state is a key focus of mine. So I currently live in DC, Washington, DC, but I do practice in the general DMV, District of Columbia, Maryland, Virginia areas. I do want to give a shout out to the Carolinas, though, because I am a graduate of the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. So it's always fun to venture back to the Carolinas, as well as my family is from the North Carolina Tidewater area. So coming up and down the coast from the northernmost point of North Carolina up in the Scotland Neck, Halifax County area down to closer to Greenville and Wilmington as you come south along that.
My daughter goes to ECU in Greenville.
Okay.
So, but look, we haven't even got into the conversation, and somebody already says she needs to talk to you tomorrow. So, Kelly, just so you know, he does offer consulting services, and we'll give information later on how you can get in touch with Eddie Harrell. So let's dive in. Let's just dive into this bill. So the bill says that it references marijuana and it's changing marijuana to cannabis. What's that about? Why do that?
So let's start kind of at the beginning. The purpose, we're dealing with the House of Representatives. The House
Yes.
of Representatives is one piece of the legislative body in the United States, the other piece being the Senate. What the House of
And we've been
Representatives,
talking about that on the show. So guys that are listening, remember we've been talking about how these legislative bodies have to work together. Now it's a big deal that the House passed this bill. It's a big first step, right?
yes, it is. It is a step. I wouldn't look at it as a victory. I would look at it as it is actually something that is a step made in the task at hand. It
Okay.
is something that now you will start to see what will happen next. But the first initial thing that has happened has been the piece of the legislature, primarily the House of Representatives, has passed an act that is tied to a funding source or funding bill, because that is the principal job or one of the principal jobs of the U.S. House of Representatives, which is to provide legislation to be enacted that directly deals with the funding bills of this country. So the what this bill
So
does.
the changing of the name from marijuana, and what I like to tell my folks that I talk to is that one, the House of Representatives is setting the stage, right? They've already
Yeah.
put bills out there to increase minimum wage. They've already put bills out there for the HEROES Act. Now the cannabis bill. We know we don't have what we need in the Senate right now to do any of this, but they're setting the stage.
Well, they've done the piece that they could do. They've put out bills that affect funding, and now the other piece that has to happen is the Senate must have a complementary bill that matches it, that is also passes the Senate, that then would subsequently go to the executive to either have it signed into law or have it vetoed, and then if it were vetoed, it would come back to the legislature to see if it could be approved without the executive power, and that would be done by a 2/3 majority of each house, both the House of Representatives and the Senate,
Mm-hmm.
voting in favor of the legislation. Like those are the steps of the process, the basic steps. The House has to pass a bill. The Senate must have a bill that, for all intents and purposes, is a complementary or matching bill to it. Those two collective things go to the executive. And to your point about setting the stage, it has done that. We've gone through most of an election cycle at the federal level. We still have outstanding pieces of the federal election cycle, which is
Georgia, 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 Georgia,
correct,
Georgia, Georgia.
that the bills are sitting there. The new Senate that will be confirmed next year will have to take those things up and then present whatever pieces of legislation to whatever executive will be in place at the time. That is
Yes.
where we are in the process.
And so we got a question that comes up, and we're going to get to that question in a little bit, Elda. So hold on to
Right.
your question. But
I have one
the
question. Can
references,
I jump in real quick, Miko? I want to give 30 seconds to answer your actual question about cannabis and marijuana.
that's what I was coming to, the marijuana to cannabis.
Right.
Why?
All right.
Why?
Right. So, cannabis is actually the name of the plant for what you colloquially known as weed or reefer or any of the things that you've known to be, whether they're positive or negative in your jargon or in your
Right.
community.
My head just had a few more, but
Right. All the
okay.
different things that you've known the consumable product to be that normally people have identified as something that you ingest via smoking is an actual plant. It is just like a tomato or a leafy green spinach, and the name of it is cannabis.
Okay.
And there's a law that is the short name of it is cannabis sativa. I mean, I'm not a botanist, but you could certainly Google is amazing, and certainly if you went to botany school, if you're a farmer, which I know that area of the world certainly has a lot of farming to it, and I'm sure we'll touch on that later. There is an actual plant that we are dealing with. What this bill does is another step in targeting decriminalizing the plant. The plant itself has been listed in the criminal in the crime in the Controlled Substance Act, excuse me, in the Controlled Substance Act from 1970. and it wasn't identified as the plant. It was identified as marijuana, which is really a term of art. It is something that was created and placed there and then incorporated underneath. When they defined marijuana, they put a line in to say that it included that it was all derivatives of the plant cannabis, sativa, L, et cetera, et cetera. And now what you're seeing is striking of the word marijuana and both its spellings with the J and with the H in the legislation prior from the crime bill,
Mm-hmm.
and inputting the word cannabis to identify the actual plant.
So
That
do you think that 5 years from now we'll be calling it cannabis?
I think we're calling it cannabis now, and
Okay.
most of the engaged community that is actively dealing with the plant, whether it is in its enterprise form or even even in a street jargon, is starting to use the word cannabis tremendously more.
Okay.
And certainly the
So y'all hear
professional level.
that? Stop calling it weed, and
Well, the thing
we're
you
going
what
to
you want to
call it
do is the
marijuana.
well,
But
you want to avoid the negative connotations that come with any particular word. And I think what cannabis does, and what I think the focus of Congress should be to do,
Mhm.
is to take away the negative connotation of it. If you're going to decriminalize it, which by definition would seem to take away a societal negative connotation. If your desire is to decriminalize, then you would want to focus and rename the thing which
Rebrand
was
it,
criminal.
like
You're
really like what you do
rebranding.
with
It's
any
no
other any
look at it
other
that look at it that way. You're simply rebranding. Now, granted, cannabis was the correct
term.
original
Right.
term
That's the
originally.
name of the plant. Which we have a comment here. Somebody says it's an herb. Is it an herb or is it more like a green?
It
Family
is
of
a
greens.
plant. Again, I'm not a botanist. I wouldn't dare jump into that to know whether it's an herb. Of course, there's a colloquial term of art that it has been called herb, but I
Yes.
don't know that it is in fact an herb the same way you would look at some herbs that we might actually know or be common. I don't know that it's basil or or
Right.
or tarragon or any
Well,
of
I
the
have some people that I can ask. I'll get back to
yes
you guys
yes
on that. You talked about decriminalization, so let's just jump in there.
yes
One of the things that it says, and let me get down here, talks about establish a process to expunge convictions and conduct sentences review hearings related to federal cannabis offenses. So I have a three-part question, right?
yep.
One is coming from an audience member, and I'm gonna go ahead and put this up. And her question is, does this bill affect the citizens that were imprisoned on third strikes due to cannabis possession or distribution, right? And then the if you can address that, but also if you can address the federal versus state crimes, and will this bill help somebody that's been convicted of a state crime versus a federal crime?
Okay. So let's talk about the setup in general. This is a federal piece of legislation. The federal law is the federal law. The states have to abide by what the federal precedent is, but they are distinctly different in their own separate individual jurisdictions than the federal law. When I describe the country, I like to tell people we have 50 states and I believe 6 territories. Don't quote me on the 6 territories. To those who are from the territories, I apologize in advance if we're 7 or 5 or 4, if I've over included or under included.
Statehood for Puerto Rico.
Right. Statehood for any of the bodies who would desire it and vote and follow the legislative
DC,
process
Puerto
to get there.
Rico. That's right. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm
Hey,
sorry. I'm sorry, Attorney Eddie. Go back.
no,
Keep going.
just all of them, just as I am, without one plea. That's all I would say. So, um, to direct my answer to this question, if their strikes are federal offenses, not state-based offenses, this is something that may address it.
Hmm.
Now, what I think is important is if you were to go to congress.gov and look up the actual piece of the law, what you will see is that there is not a budget submitted for this bill to the Congressional Budget Office.
Right.
The reason I say that is because what this bill does is create another government agency to then subsequently address these issues. What the what
Oh.
which so it
So a
what it
new
endeavors
government agency. So like how we
what
have um
it,
the FBI or Health
well, a
and Human
government
Services
agency,
or
I would like to say, okay, whether it's an agency or sub agency, I,
okay.
I I I don't want to get into the minutia, but
Hmm.
they are creating its own separate office. And if you give me a second, I'll pull it up in terms of what it is called. That ultimately the Opportunity Trust Fund
Hmm.
is meant to fund this office, and then that office will subsequently deal with the piece of the criminal justice portion, that all the things that we're going to want to speak to. So since like any other business, we have to deal with operational management again. We don't
Right.
know what the budget is, and then there's no this bill lines up the what, but it does not identify yet the how.
The how. Right.
All the how. And most of the how with any business is tied to the money. Where does the money go and who effectively utilizes the money? Now, it does speak to what ultimately the Attorney General, who this office will subsequently answer to, and we can get into all the big government, small government conversations, whether this should be something that's housed in the DOJ or simply exists in this new office. Who knows what the Senate will do, whatever. But ultimately, the Attorney General has been identified in the bill to spend certain amounts or percentages to execute the task that this office, this newly created office, will do. Uh, the Congress or the House has allocated 50% of the trust fund is to go to X, 10% is to go to Y.
Yeah,
So,
because that trust fund is going to build up kind of quickly. It says here that it's a 5% tax on cannabis products.
which means for those people who are in jurisdiction, let's say everything went through, poof, puff the magic dragon, we could blink our eyes like I dream a genie, and this all went through right now. What this actually does is add a 5% increase to the price of cannabis in all the jurisdictions in the country right now that
Mm.
sell it in any way, because what it establishes is a federal tax of 5% on cannabis transactions.
Right.
And again, that's how the pieces fit together. It's
Mm-hmm.
how, and it's follow the, if you follow the words, you find the money, and if you follow the money, then you find the people. So it's really one of those places now to understand that the real function of this bill is the House, which has 435 representatives that represent everyone in the country in their different congressional districts. The bill was introduced. It had sponsors and co-sponsors that ultimately, I'm sure, have some ties to this industry somewhere.
Right.
Now those business entities or individuals want a pathway to operational success. Doing that requires introducing this bill. Of course, the federal government is going to want to fund it, which means they're going to want to tax it. They have to do all these different steps, and
But
the
right
only thing you
now,
really get
I mean, if
from
you're
this bill is a
Colorado,
5% tax.
yeah, if you're Colorado, you're probably jaded. Like, what? They're going to tax us. But for other places where it's not decriminalized, we won't
Well, the
even.
business owner is jaded in these communities because they're facing the upward battle of, let's say let's say a an amount of cannabis costs $100, whatever amount you want it, but a $100 amount,
Mm-hmm.
but it is facing a for the grower to sell it to the manufacturer. Let's think about how we think of food. You have so think farmer to food processor.
Mm-hmm.
The farmer to food processor in selling it faces a 5% tax to sell
Okay.
it to, and then the manufacturer to the distributor. So go from food manufacturer to your grocery store. They face a 15% tax.
Mm-hmm.
Boom. Now the grocery store or the uh, uh, provider to John Q. Public or Jane Q. Public or non-identifying person Q. Public, they face whatever tax that would be at that level. Let's say it's another 15% tax.
Mm-hmm.
Plus, now with this bill, there would be a federal 5% tax that would be added in theory, because we haven't seen its implementation yet, at
Right.
each one of those levels, because it would compel every single one of those levels to charge the federal 5% tax under this bill. So do the
Got it.
math on what that cost of $100 is for that end consumer, as well as the person selling to the end consumer by the time they receive that same amount of cannabis to sell to the end consumer from when it came from the grower.
Now this is what it says, and help me if I'm wrong. This
Yep.
trust fund, right? It
Mm-hmm.
says it established a trust fund to support various programs and services for individuals and businesses and communities impacted by the war on drugs. Now, I know you were going to look up that agency question. Guys,
Yeah.
I'll post that name of the agency after our live. Okay, so I'll get that posted for them. But this trust fund is taxed, and it was quite complicated, the layering of all those different taxes. That sounds like a lot of money, but it's kind of the system that we live in. But with this trust fund, it says the support programs for individuals and communities impacted by the war on drugs. Do you have any insight into what that means?
Huh. My insight is as good as anybody else's. That is where I think we're going to have to hold our representatives accountable.
Okay.
Um, and that comes on the House of Representatives side
Use your
or the Senate
beads.
side. And then not only the House of Representatives and the Senate side for writing bills that articulate it, but
Mm-hmm.
then when we're looking at whatever administration comes in, the Senate's job is to confirm appointments of the president. So when we're looking at the confirmation of people that will be put into office by the president,
The new
you
president.
are going to want to you're going to want to look at the track records to see what the implementation of policies, how they've done the implementation of policies in places. What will our attorney general look like under the next administration when it comes to the impact of criminal justice and how to execute criminal justice in this country? The attorney general is responsible for the execution of the system, the criminal justice system in this country. So how someone handles it, those laws that were put into place, whether moving towards the crime bill, which is something different than the Controlled Substance Act, the
Mm-hmm.
crime bill that most people are familiar with in the early mid 90s, the Clinton administration, things that have tied to the current president elect, things that have had to be explained, things that senators over the course of time have had to explain that they, and representatives that were heavily in favor of that bill then and have modified their positions now have had to explain. That is what we'll have to hold people accountable to at election time and implementation in offices that they hold at both the federal level, whether it be the assistant U.S. attorneys in the various jurisdictions, and then complementary when the states go to model what's happening at the federal level, the
Mm-hmm.
state's attorney, the state's attorney's offices, the district attorney's offices of the various states, depending on what they call themselves in the jurisdictions. Those operational components of our government system is where we're going to have to hold people accountable. Um,
I got it. And that, and I talk about using your beads, right? So this is an example of, this is brand new legislation. We need to tell our elected officials how we feel on this topic, right? And there's a lot of gray area that's in this bill still. And the more and more I talk to you, the more I get it. But here's the last question I want to make sure we get out is, I have some land in Marion County.
okay.
Um, you know, is it possible for me, because it talks about it talks about loan programs. Let me see, where's it at? Something about a loan program establishes makes small business administrative loans available and services to entities that are cannabis related and service providers. So there's options in there where maybe I can start this. I got some land. Can I,
Mhm.
can I do this?
All right. So let's break that down. One, you have land. Everything is about land and cash.
Mm-hmm.
Ultimately, businesses are about land and cash and what you can do with those two resources. I think you need to identify what you're going to do on that land. If what you're going to do is farm, I think there's a very particular path you want to start to investigate to go towards the farming in this area. It is a high level. It is of a high level that does take subject matter experts. But I do think the pathway to legally farming a cannabis product, principally hemp, is much more is has a path of least resistance or much less barriers to entry than say getting up a cannabis producing farm that has a THC level higher than what classifies as industrial hemp.
Got it.
Mainly because it is not a federal, it is not federally legal, which then relies on a state jurisdiction. And I do not believe that South Carolina is a state that has legalized or decriminalized cannabis to such a level that it has. I'm not sure. Does South Carolina have a
I
medical
don't
market?
think
I
so.
don't
Well,
believe.
we have hemp. I know we have hemp growers in South Carolina,
Absolutely,
but now,
absolutely, because hemp is legal.
okay,
Hemp is 100%
that's where
federally
all the
legal.
CBD shops popping up from, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Okay.
Hemp was uh, legalized functionally in 2018 with the passing of the Farm Bill, the most
Mm-hmm.
recent Farm Bill, and then that that the enactment of it began in 19. So we're running on a year, almost 2 full years of hemp being completely legal to farm. So you could start, in theory, you could start in that avenue tomorrow. And the way that I would address that is start to assess the land, that your piece of land and what that property would be able to yield as a farm. So, and I'm not an expert on farming.
Mm-hmm.
I have people that I certainly refer to bring that piece out. But in terms of land surveys, soil quality, all the things that I believe that you would do in any level of farming at any level. So for those families that come from farming backgrounds, whether it's sharecropping, owning their own land, whatever the case may be, that institutional knowledge that you have as to how to get a farm business going that is of the type that generates a plant-based produce, then that is what they should start to look up and endeavor to do now.
Got it.
Let's move off of that. If you're looking to put up businesses on that land, so essentially you're putting up structures and commercial properties or whatever to subsequently then be at the next level, whether it's manufacturing
Dispensaries.
or a dispensary, like the CBD shops that you are seeing, then that is also a process that is about what what is the equipment that goes in there, understanding what the budget looks like to create a functional entity that will then produce a high quality product, because then you're just going to be in the market against everyone else creating your products and trying to sell your products. You'll have to put together a marketing plan, all those different things, all those different steps that happen that are no different than if you were running any of the businesses that we see on a regular basis, whether they're franchises or small mom and pop shops, small businesses or big business. It's the same
Right.
function, but you have the valuable asset, which is the land,
Right.
to
And
do
and
that.
there and you've been a wealth of information attorney, Eddie. And there's pieces in here about making sure that African Americans can get access to some of these resources, right?
Correct.
And so we could talk
Correct.
about that another day. Believe it or not,
Absolutely.
we're 5 minutes over. So, but what I would like to do is, because if somebody wanted to do some of this work, although you practice in the DC, Maryland area, you can consult with them. Is that a true statement?
Absolutely. I can certainly provide my contact information.
Yeah, can you go
Where
ahead and give it to me and I can post it?
absolutely, they can reach out to me via email. We can schedule time and appointments to talk about and consult on those things, and then go from there in relation to what would be next steps, and if it is something that they actually endeavor to do in a business capacity.
Awesome. So I guys will be sharing Attorney Eddie's email. Um,
Absolutely,
and so
I will make sure that they have uh, both both my email and as well as the my administrator's email, so I can best organize and set calendars. I appreciate the exposing me to your huge base. I'm sure, so I know I will have to mark off a tremendous amount of time to speak to your congregation, for
look at that.
lack of better words. So I'm excited about it. I look forward to it. I do want to give the before we get out of here, the name of the agency that it is looking to create. And again, any of this information for the guests who are watching the show, um, you can always go to congress.gov and pull up the actual bills that are our federal legislation. I encourage you to do so. It's public information. You can review it with your children, your family, just so when you have questions for your representatives or for your family members, you know exactly where to point them to say, hey, we all have the ability to read and
Use our
think of it for
V's.
ourselves.
That's
Yes,
right.
absolutely.
We got to be visible. We got to use our voice, and we got to vote.
Absolutely, absolutely, and know what we're voting on.
That's right.
Know
There's
what
a
we're voting
lot.
on.
There's a whole lot still to come, guys, on this. Did you get this
Yes,
from your agency yet?
anytime, and anytime you would want to revisit this, I would certainly be open to coming back on your show. I've had a tremendous time. Thank you again for the opportunity to be on.
No worries. So when you get that agency, shoot that over. I'll share it, and then,
Yeah,
guys, later today, I will share his contact information. All right, Attorney Eddie, thank you so much for your time. This
you're
has been
very
great.
welcome. I look forward again. Have a wonderful rest of your day.
All right, you too. So, guys, was that incredible or what? Um, and I will be sharing his contact information, Attorney Eddie. I mean, he can go on and on. That's what you need, right? You want to invest in your business. Um, you need an expert, and that is indeed what Attorney Eddie is. He is an expert in this space. I learned so much just in the hour that I have been speaking with him. So, also, if you have situations that you want to find out. Now, granted, the bill is not done yet, right? But you know, use your V's. Tell folks what's important to you, right? Tell your elected officials what's important to you. If you want to start a business, and there is some aspects in these bills that's going to make sure that people of African American descent can get involved in this, you got to start now. You got to start educating yourself. Just like Attorney Eddie said, he said, hey, look, go look at the bill. That's what I do. It's not a lot of fun reading, I tell you, but you need to invest in your business. You need to invest in yourself, and you need to use your V's. So on that, I went over 9 minutes today, but I thought it was worth it. I thought it was worth it. Thank you all so much for your questions. A lot of stuff in here is still gray, but it's time for change, y'all. And I look forward to talking to you next Monday. Bye.